Yeah, just a little bit of Gab Jam, and that was a little bit of Pleasure from Glide, which is kind of going to take you into what we're going to talk about today. So
okay, so today we're still doing Blog-vember. If you've been keeping track, we're knee deep in it right before Thanksgiving now. But we have a viewer question that we decided to do a special video for. What is weird about this question is that it opened the door on a bigger question, which is the reason why we're doing a dedicated episode.
That's right.
Okay, so the viewer question, our question is from Gretchen White. Her YouTube channel is GW3063, and she asked, what attracted you to one another? And so because our story revolves around music, it opened up a bigger question, and that bigger question was for you, Bruce. What was it?
Oh, so we're finishing up a couple of different songs. Mm-hmm. We just finished up this song called Black Superhero Theme.
Yes.
So, which to me, with that question coming in at the same time, mm-hmm. was kind of apropos because, I mean, that whole period of time, meaning the 1970s, mm-hmm. was a huge influence on why I play. Period. Okay. You know, why I play music. But kind of now going back to the question, mm-hmm. is that I think it's really unique that you and I did come together because I was born in Henderson, Nevada, mm-hmm. you know, close to the West Coast, mm-hmm. and you were born
in New York. Mm-hmm.
So you were born in New York City, mm-hmm. right? So we were light years apart. Mm-hmm. And the fact that most people stay in the area in which they are born, mm-hmm. you're born and reared and you're raised in the same area, you just rarely just go out unless, you know, you go out for college or something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would happen. But for us, you know, we didn't meet in college. We ended up meeting in Detroit. Mm-hmm. It just so happened my parents got a divorce. My mother had people who lived here in Detroit, and so we were going back and forth between Detroit and Vegas, and my mom decided for myself and my brother that we were going to live here in Detroit, mm-hmm. and that was circa like 1978, and mm-hmm. then for you...
Oh, my mom is what I call a black gypsy. We moved somewhere everywhere.
Out to people.
Right. So we moved somewhere everywhere, and one of the places that she really was impressed by when she came for a conference was Detroit, and she's like, black people run things, and it's just so progressive, and that was in the 70s. So in the 80s, early 80s, 83, we moved here. Okay. She was like, we're picking up everything, and this is where we're going. So
yeah, and so about 86, 80, I don't know.
It was 86.
It was 86, mm-hmm. So 86 or so, 85, 86. You know, I started doing some recording, okay. and I started wanting to use more female vocalists on some songs. Mm-hmm. And so I had one song before that I used a female vocalist on, and I ended up using her and you mm-hmm. on another song that I was mm-hmm. working on, and I got you through a friend of mine. Yeah. And I know for me, I had been in bands previously where, you know, guys were always hitting on the women or the girls that were in the band, and mm-hmm. and to me it got in the way of the music, and it was like, you know, I know for me that just seemed like such a cliche, right? That, you know, whoever comes to sing for you now, you got to be hitting on them and trying to, no, it's like, you know, I wanted to keep things strictly business, mm-hmm. and that was just the way it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And so when a friend of mine brought you over to my mom's house mm-hmm. to meet me, I tried to keep it strictly business. Right. I
was 3 weeks out of high school, and he was about to turn 21.
Yes, so. About to turn 21 years old. So the initial meeting was like, you know, I really didn't think of her that way. Mm-hmm. Try my best to not focus on that. And
I didn't want to think of him that way either, because guys in bands are usually jerks from what all the people that I had been associated with. So it was strictly business.
Yeah, it was strictly business. And then after a while, once I decided I wanted to use it on the song, I think we talked. We had telephone conversations, and we tend to talk for a long period of time, and one thing kind of led to another, and the rest.
Well, I just really was impressed with the fact that he seemed to have his stuff together. That he had a unique sound, that he was rock, that he had all these finished songs, they were recorded. And it wasn't so much the up-and-comer part of it, but it was that he had his own vision and voice. That it wasn't like, all the people at the time that I saw were all trying to be Prince. Right. And even though you had a corner of Prince, you had a lot of rock. And you had your own ideas that were, like, separate from Prince. Not everything was, you had real definite ideas about things. So that was impressive.
And I also like that about her. She had her own definite sound. She had her own way of just doing music. And she had her own songs, had her own ideas. And I thought that was really, to me, that really impressed me. And actually, I felt like she had more of a voice than I did. Because at the same token, at that period of time, anytime I would play something for somebody, I would always hear, "Oh, you just sound like Prince," and so people would say that type of thing, or even sometimes, you hear Prince or Rick James or something, but the fact that I would even hear Prince at all, it would bother me to some extent, and so what I ended up doing during that period of time is that every Prince cassette, we were doing cassettes.
Right.
Every Prince cassette I have, I gave away. I gave away everything that was connected to Prince. Because
kind of branch off into your own.
Right. I just did not want to have him as being a part of my musical vocabulary. Until one of the things that I started to realize is that Prince and I basically had the same musical DNA.
Right.
So in some ways, it was going to be almost impossible to avoid him. Because growing up, we liked the same groups.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite groups was Graham Central Station.
Yeah.
One of my favorite groups was Sly and the Family Stone.
Right.
I got into Jimi Hendrix later, but I loved the Ohio Players. I loved just all of that 70s stuff growing up. James Brown, all that. The funk, Parliament Funkadelic, Electrifying Mojo. Before Electrifying Mojo here in Detroit, he is a legendary DJ here in Detroit.
And I used to listen to him too, so I didn't know Bruce was listening on the other side of town.
Right. Before he got into Prince, he was Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
He was Parliament Funkadelic all day, all night. So that's what I was listening to at that time. So, Prince was... all that stuff was a gateway drug to Prince in the first place because it kind of opened you up to it. And then I heard Stanley Clarke and Prince's stuff. I heard all the stuff that I had been listening to. So after a while, I think I got to a point where I had to again get at peace with the fact that Prince is just musical juggernaut and genius that's out there that you can't avoid anyway. And then number two, that you share some of the same influences. Yeah. And some of that stuff is going to come out. It's going to come out the same way, and then some of it is because you are influenced by him. So, I had to kind of get at peace with that and say, notwithstanding that fact, you can still find your own voice. Yeah. So, I think we can make a segue to the other thing. Yeah. Okay. And so that kind of brings me into why I got started in music. Okay. I guess for me, I can't tell you actually why I got started in music because all I can say is that I've wanted to do it ever since I've been here. Wow. So ever since I've had, any type of memory in my head. About what you wanted to do. Right. Wow. So I've done that and I feel like I've always had a song. So I've always... from a kid on, whether 4 or whatever, there was always a song in my head. So at that thing, I know I have. But then it was what is going to feed that, and what is going to, how is that going to come out? And I think that's where, to me, the influences come in at. So seeing the Jackson 5 when I was younger, growing up, it fascinated me with the guitars. Oh, yeah. So that and it's like, oh man, I want to play guitar. I didn't know if I wanted to play bass, whatever it was. I wanted to do that. And then, later when I heard Sly and I started to get into Sly and the Family Stone and then Ohio Players and the rest of these people, it was just, again, it just opened me up to just open my palette up as far as musically all the different things you can do. But I think I honed in on bass after I really heard, I found out that Jermaine Jackson played the bass and didn't play the guitar. So that broke my heart initially. And my cousin really kind of broke it down very logically to me. He just counted the strings on, he said, look at the guitar Tito has, it has 6 strings. The one that Jermaine has, it has 4 strings. I was like, God, he's using logic on it.
Right.
I couldn't deny that logic. So after a while, he was a bass player. And so that made me really start focusing in on bass when I was hearing songs. And so what really did it for me was the guys on my block. You know, when we came to Detroit, and I lived on a street called Harding Street, and there was this guy down the street from me. I used to play with his little brother, and I used to go down there and play with his little brother. And I hate to say this, you know, I did it just so I could hear Bernard play. And Bernard he opened up a whole world to me. He was playing along with Larry Graham's Mirror album, so this would have been 75, 76, and Graham Central Station Mirror, and he's playing with that record. And he showed me 2 things. I really was able to hone in on the bass and how great it sounded. And then number 2 was the fact that you could teach yourself how to play. So my parents didn't necessarily want to give me lessons, but all of a sudden it was like, there's a way to
teach
do
yourself. I love it.
You can teach yourself. And so that was the main thing. And then what really sold me was Stanley Clarke. When I heard Stanley Clarke,
because he played the bass and the guitar all in one instrument.
All at the same time. His bass and guitar all together. That was just, it was like, that's it.
Right. There's a way to do both.
I'm going to be a bass player after that. You can do it all on the bass. So then the rest is history, because after that, then that leads me to meeting you. And
I just wrote songs because it's something creative to do. I like to do creative things. So.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's sort of like, I don't know where you fall at on the strata, meaning that I don't know what makes a person a great artist. I don't know what makes a person a mediocre artist. But I do know if you've been bitten by this artistic bug, that you can't choose to turn it off. It's like you just can't. I mean, the bug will hit you, and it will find a way to manifest itself, and that's just what it does. And so, being an artist, I think, is more of a verb, to me than a title. I mean, because it's actually what you do.
You see everything a little differently, and it expresses itself differently.
It does, and it just automatically kind of goes that way. So I guess within you and me, there's a certain kindred spirit, because I think you probably had the same thing as far as, because I know even for me learning how to play songs, initially I didn't develop my ear until later. I played what was in my head, so I would play the songs that I was hearing in my head. And so my first songs that I learned were songs that I wrote. Yeah,
me too. I guess, I don't know if it was because I didn't have the skill, probably that was part of it, but then the other part was that I thought of playing as being able to produce something.
Right, yeah.
And not just duplicate.
You're right, yeah.
So it's being able to make something new.
Right.
So that's the way I was thinking about playing keyboard.
Was it? I think I always kind of felt self-conscious about that because at the time I didn't quite understand how to replicate what other people played. But what did happen for me, what I think happened for me, is that down the line, one of the things I didn't have to work on, that other people have to work on a lot of times, is developing your own voice. Because that was the one thing, it's like, okay, I got that part, So usually, the one thing that I had was people knew when I was playing. People knew what my bass playing sounded like, and then it translated to other things, like even when we were doing the house and the techno music.
We were playing praise and worship, and they were thinking the songs that we were covering were our songs,
original songs. So,
but really they weren't.
So people get to know your voice after a while. So I think maybe that also, that kind of kindred spirit aspect also is what kind of pulled us together. So
we hope we answered your question, Gretchen White. Again, Blog-vember. This is post a day for 30 days. Don't forget, we're having a meetup at South by Southwest coming up beginning of next year. So if you happen to be in the area, if you want to participate, there's a link below. Also, make sure you keep checking out the blog. And if you're listening on the podcast, we love you. We love you. Again, if you dig the vibe, make sure you
subscribe.
Until next time, wishing you love, peace, and
some chicken grease. Funky grease.